Good morning, folks. Welcome to episode 76 of Something More Than Gibberish. Um, Sorry about the delayed start by a couple of minutes. I was having Wi-Fi extension issues. Today, I have the pleasure of featuring Kwamise Fletcher, or better known as LadyK. Now, you're in for a treat. I was fortunate to listen to this lady's work on a show hosted by Midnight and Chance called Put It in the Chat. And she is phenomenal. She's ranked sixth nationally as a spoken word artist. She's an author and educator. And she's also the 2025 Grand Slam champion of the Loudmouth Slam team. She's well known for her live performances more than her posts on Instagram. So if you get the chance to see her, and especially after this feature, you would be sure to go and check her out if she's performing in your vicinity. Now, Lady K is in the room, so let me bring her up and get on with the show. It'll be quite an exciting show. Lady K, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to Something More Than Gibberish, and thank you for agreeing to feature on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Now, you've got a big repertoire of accolades, so yeah, welcome to the show, and let's find out more about you and hear some of your work and expound on your work. And so what got you into writing to begin with? Where did you start? Where was the starting point?
So I joke, but it's probably true. Um, the writing is probably in the DNA somewhere. I come from three generations of maternal educators and English teachers. My father is a poet as well, so it's probably in the DNA makeup somewhere. But I will say my senior year, I don't know if every school does this, but we had to do like a senior portfolio. And it included, different types of form as far as literary work, and some of it was poetry. And so that's probably my first like recognizable time that I can go back to of me writing poetry.
Wow. So now you said your father's also a poet. Have you written stuff collaboratively with him?
So I haven't written with either one of my parents. My grandmother was also a writer and a poet. And so my mother and I have talked about doing some sort of collaboration, like a generational type of, collection between the three of us. My father, especially now that like I'm doing it more often, we haven't collaborated on anything, but he will send me his poetry and like, say, hey, what do you think of this? Or like if you can incorporate any of this in your stuff. So he'll definitely do that. But we haven't collaborated yet. I definitely need to do that. That would be an awesome keepsake to have in my family.
I think so, yeah. And I think it'll also fill both being poets themselves. I think it'll fill their hearts with a lot of joy, seeing their daughter and writing with their daughter, and that the trend continues on with the next generation too. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I definitely I need to handle that. Both of my parents, I'm blessed to still have them in my life, so I need to take advantage of that and make that happen.
Yeah. Now, which part of the US are you based in, Lady K? So, where do you
So
mainly perform?
I'm based in, that's a funny question. So those are two separate answers. I am based in Fresno, California, which is the Central Valley. It's probably about 4 hours north of LA, and it's about 3 hours ish south of the Bay Area. Where I perform the most is definitely negotiable because I kind of am a nomad when it comes to that. Wherever, whatever areas I gravitate to, usually I'm in LA a lot. I go to Vegas a lot. So I'm kind of all over when it comes to where I actually perform.
Mm.
The poetry scene here locally is a pretty small, eclectic group. And so I definitely had to start traveling in order to be able to like kind of really like do the things that I wanted to do.
Mm, mm. Um, yes, and when you've got a day job to do, it travel's not always easy either, right? When you've got life responsibilities, let's say. Um, but I think it's great that you get the opportunity to go and deliver your work live because I've heard you on put it in the chat with Midnight and Chance, and hearing your work just even online was you could feel the power of your words, but delivering it in person, particularly the topics that you write on, like black womanhood, health, faith, identity, mental health, self-worth. I mean, that's all powerful topics that you write on that I think it's a message that many can glean benefits from, right?
Yeah, I lean more towards spoken word than page poetry, um, just because I know how the effect that I tend to have on people when they're able to um, hear me do my work. And that's the same way I resonate with poetry. So it definitely is a different experience when you're able to hear that in person. But I have gotten, travel is something that I'm blessed to be in my career long enough where, I can make it happen most time. But I understand that that's not feasible for everyone. And so this is why I appreciate like, opportunities like this and spaces where, you can share virtually because you can be exposed to so many different art levels of artistry from around the world from the comfort of your living room. And
Mm.
so I really, when I teach workshops and stuff, I really talk to them about the power of diversifying your area. And if travel, obviously, being in person is always going to be a special type of vibe. You're always going to, get the realest form of the art when you're able to experience it in the moment. But there's so many other ways that you can replicate that, especially now with the advances of technology. So, yeah.
Well, here we are. You're in California, and I'm in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and here we are conversing um, for a couple of hours of poetry and discussions. And so, yes, technology is a big help, and really, I think COVID, one of the silver linings is it did open people to exploring these online media, where,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know.
Kind
So
of forced us to have to think outside the box, right?
yeah, exactly. So, is the passion mainly in live performances, like in slams and so forth, or is that where the passion is?
You know what? That's a very interesting question. If you would have asked me that at the beginning of the year, I would have absolutely said yes. As I grow more as an artist, so the reality is I started technically later. Um, I physically, like I just turned 48. And so slam wise, as far as competitive poetry, that's pretty late to start competing. And so I started about 2 years ago, so that's 46 or so, right?
Mm.
And um, I kind of always have been on this like accelerated trajectory because of the fact that I started later. And so I know that my time doing it at this level is probably truncated versus other people because I started later. Um, and like I fell in love with it. I absolutely love the community and being able to meet different people and hear different. I think that you get such a more well-rounded idea of the world when you're able to hear different people's stories and poetry versus what you may be exposed to in your own small geographical area. But, this year I really challenged myself to not just compete, but do workshops, facilitate workshops and stuff at every one of the festivals. And it has made me have a much more, while I'm still competitive, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the spark that I see that I am putting in others. I've already seen people that have taken my workshops already put some of those things into practice in their own careers. And that brings me just as much joy as me actually competing.
Yeah.
So while I still enjoy it, and I'm gonna do it till the wheels fall off and I can't do it anymore. But I can't see me, too much past 50 up there competing and going and chasing all these different festivals and stuff like that. Me personally. I mean, it's not like it can't happen. I'm
Yeah.
just saying I don't foresee that. So I'm glad that Erica, you're hilarious. I can't foresee me doing it at this pace past my 50th birthday and not transitioning into some of the other things that I'm passionate about now. I've had the opportunity to do a one-woman show this year. I facilitate workshops. I do motivational speaking. So I can see that becoming much more of my focus than the grind of competing and travel and all that stuff.
And that's a very selfless aspect too, because as you said, when you see somebody's path sort of escalate as a result of a workshop they did or time you spent with them, that's a gift that keeps giving, because their success, it fills you with joy too, 100%. But on the same token, I wouldn't be writing off age as the stage, because about 12 months ago, I was privileged to see somebody live in my city, but he actually comes from the city north of me. He was over 75, and he's been involved in the slam scene for years and years and years. And he was a feature at this event. And man, this guy, for 2 hours literally, he recited memorized stuff, and he captivated the audience, and he was in his 70s, like. And speaking to him after, he said he tries to memorize all his work because he likes to engage with the audience, not looking at a book. And this guy spun me out, like, he had about 4 20 25 minute sort of blocks in the 2 hours, and he literally captivated the audience for the whole show. And he was past his 70. He was in his, I'd say, early to mid 70s. I didn't want to be rude and ask his age, but
Right.
so I wouldn't write off 50 as a cap, because
No, I wouldn't. I definitely am not writing it off. Like this is definitely like my lifelong what I will be doing. I'm just talking about in this current version of it, the way this looks, me chasing, festival after festival and competing. And I always tell people, I even tell people in my workshops, like, you can't judge me on my life and my stories forever.
mm,
Like at some point, I'm sensitive about my and so, like, I'm doing it now because I have the love for it, but I also am very realistic, and I'm very self-reflective, where if at any moment that changes and it no longer feels like it's serving me and it's taking more effort for me to do it than the joy that I'm getting out of it, then I just want to make sure I keep doing those check-ins with myself to then transition the way that I need to. And that's the reason why I've made it such a big part of my brand to not only just be a competitive slam poet. There's
yeah,
so many other things that like come along with me. So that way, even if I just need to take a break for 5 6 months or something and only facilitate workshops or only do teaching with the kids or something like that, I really think that'll probably be the next big thing for me, is getting the kids to experience poetry the way that I get to, and seeing them come into themselves.
That is a very healthy outlook because to me, kids are very important because they are the next generation. And everything that we can impart that our parents and that generation imparted upon us, if we can give that, that's to the young generation who's the future. I mean, I myself am 66 years old, so I don't think of me as such. I've run my race with the wolves. Now it's about laying the foundations for the younger generations, and part of the reason why I even do this show is the many poets like yourself that I've been fortunate to meet and encounter. I want to showcase their work beyond the shores of the nation they live in, because I from this I create a YouTube, I create a Spotify podcast, which I'll send you the links for, and you can use them.
Okay, good.
So, like for example, in a lot of the subcontinent, YouTube is popular because it's cheap as well, whereas some of the like TikToks and all aren't. In China, TikTok's big, for example. So I post on the multiple just to be able to expose artists to everybody. The main reason, the main driver being there's I know many people around the world who have nobody to turn to at that dark hour, and hearing a word, hearing a line, hearing a discussion point between myself and the featured guest, that could be the turning point of pulling them back from the cliff at the darkest hour, right?
Absolutely. And that's a part of my work is um my family is not always as happy about how transparent I am, but especially like, in Black communities, and, that's my lived experience. So that's the one I'm most familiar with. But there's a lot of things that, that trope of what happens in this house stays in this house,
Mm,
is very prevalent in our culture. And from what I've heard, a lot of cultures have similar attitudes when it comes like that,
mm,
especially marginalized communities.
mm,
So it's important to me to tell those stories, to be kind of, if nothing else, for people to know that they're not alone. I've had men, women, all ages, all races come up to me and say that, thank you so much for this poem that you talked about, whatever it was. And for me, that is the reason why I'm doing it.
mm,
Like I want my words to resonate, and I want people to be able to feel something and understand, or even just like if it gives you a different perspective and makes you think a little about like different lived experiences. Because a lot of times I always say this, like, if nobody at the table looks like you, then how do you expect them to be able to speak for you if they've never lived your life? And
mm.
so me telling my stories is me putting myself at the table so that they can at least hear the stories and maybe get different perspectives. So it's really important to tell our stories, and to keep being loud and unapologetic about the things that we've experienced in our life. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed of anything that I've been through in my life. It's made me into the woman I am today. And that gave me, that life experience that I needed to keep going forward. So it's just the topics I talk about are rough. They're hard. They're not always the light and fluffy kind. And so you also have to be okay yourself. Like, I know for me, there are some days when I'm talking about my, infertility issues, or, the loss of my child and things like that. Today might not be a day I can do that poem.
Mm,
And so, because I'm not, like, I'm healed from it, but I may be in a space where it's not healthy for me. So
mm,
you just have to be able to also check in with yourself to know when you are capable of telling those stories. And it doesn't make those stories any less valid. You just have to protect your own mental health to know that today might not be the day that I'm prepared to open up that womb. Because when I perform, I am going all the way there,
mm.
especially when I'm competing.
Mm.
So that means I have to put myself in whatever mind frame I needed to be in where those emotions are the rawest and realest. In order to do that, I have to provide myself a certain barrier around my emotions and my mental health to be able to go all the way there and know that I'll be able to pull myself back out. Because
Yeah.
there are some days that I might be able to do the poem, but it might take me a week to pull myself back out if I take myself there.
Yeah.
And
100%.
so,
That's the most vital. You hit the nail right on the head. When we look in the mirror, we got to be comfortable with who we see, and we got to make sure our health, that our glass is full to be able to pour in, to quench the thirst of another, right? And you got to look after your health, your mental and physical health, and you got to be in a good place, because I think when you are in a good place, then what you share with others is authentic as well, you know.
yeah, you just got to be prepared because there are a lot of times because of the vulnerability that I share in my pieces that gives a lot of people the entrance they need to then share of themselves, which
Yeah.
is great. I don't mind it, but a lot of times, sometimes is their stuff may even be a little heavier than mine.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
so then not only do I have my stuff on me, now you done just brought all of yours onto my back as well.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be prepared. If you're gonna share super vulnerable pieces, that means you're sometimes that gives people they think they have the permission to then share how that piece resonated with them and what part of their life was similar or whatever the case may be, and so that becomes a lot
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. Like Erica's put in a comment, like 6 years since she lost her mum, and when she was reading that piece that she wrote about her mum, and then we break down, there is no time with healing. Like it
Yep,
can be a lifetime sometimes. And there's a
absolutely.
comment there saying, giving yourself to the work, you become the poem. You've got to live it, you've got to feel it, and then that authenticity comes through, right? And it's hard to do that when you're public facing and a large crowd.
Yeah,
The
that's
other
why I tell
thing,
my coaches always get mad at me because I'm not the type of person like when it comes to competition. I'm a theater kid, so I know how to tap into it and when I need to like turn it on for the stage. But I'm not the type that's like again, 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 again.
yeah,
Like I'm not that person, and so a lot of coaches like they want that level of repetition, and I'll do it. But I I still reserve like a piece of my energy um, for when I'm actually doing it on the stage full out. And so I don't like like I know how to just deliver the words without giving you the emotion behind it, and
yeah,
I will do that in practice and then turn it on when I'm on
yeah,
stage. So
yeah.
yeah,
The and yeah, look, the as I said, normally most people I've featured on this show, I'm very acquainted with their work, because I invite people that I think that where I value their work, and their work is of substance, that really speak of very real issues. And I only met you. I only encountered you that once on put it in the chat, and immediately I was gripped by the power of your word. Uh,
thank you, thank
you
you.
know, yeah. And we were fortunate that day you could share quite a few pieces, and I thought, wow, I've got to have this lady on the show. So, and thank you, as I said before. Now, with what I was going to say, so the other thing is, I've been to in-person events where I've gone ready to deliver couple of pieces, and while I'm waiting for my turn to get up on the stage, I've found somebody else has read a piece that has just taken me from there to some really heavy emotional places, and I've gone, oh no, and I've had to make last minute changes as to what I was going to read. So I always have a few spare pieces of, you know, because it can
I am
happen, right?
absolutely like that. And if I'm being honest, when I'm competing, there's a certain level of detachment that I have to maintain in order for me to be able to compete. So a lot of times I'm not fully tapped in when I'm at an event where I am actually competing, because I can't, and plus a lot of people, so I am very big on energies, and I feel like I'm an empath of sorts, so I feel other people's emotions and energy very heavily. And it's very apparent to me. And so I have to have a certain level of detachment from other people's work when I am in spaces with them in order for me to preserve myself. So sometimes it's actually fun to not be competing because I can just listen to the poetry. But I also, that, like I said, that self-awareness is real big for me, especially when it comes to poetry. Like I constantly am doing this kind of like double dutch of um like, well, okay, is this tapping too close to home? And I instantly kind of have to like disassociate
Mm.
from somebody else's work in order for me to be able to function.
Yeah. Now, also very recently, you were nominated for 3 awards. I did vote for you on about 4 devices myself. Now,
Thank you.
let's tell the audience about that. Now, what was that? Let's share that. That was
So I was super shocked because you can campaign to get nominated for during the National Poetry Writing Month. They open up the nominations to nominate people, and I had every intention of promoting to, like, hey, if you guys like my work, please nominate me. Yada yada yada. Life came, and I just didn't have that opportunity to do it. And I didn't get a chance to. So I kind of just put it out of my mind, and I was like, I'm very much a big, like, if it's meant for me, it'll be for me. And if it's not, it's not. So when I didn't do that, I was like, oh, okay, that just means that this wasn't something that was, meant for me at this time. And so somebody else that was nominated actually DM'd me and said, hey, you're nominated for, 3 different. And I was like, what? And so it was really special. I know everybody has critiques about these awards and the validity of them and all of the stuff. But for me, it was really, you know, I felt very good about it because, not only did I not, like, I didn't make somebody do it. Somebody just thought of me in those categories and put me up for consideration. And for me, that's all I've ever wanted, is to be acknowledged by my peers that I at least deserve a seat at the table. And
mm,
so to be acknowledged in those ways, and I work my butt off. I love it, and I'm not complaining about it. But also, however, LadyK is a full-time job, and I also have a full-time job. So I work really hard to get better, be better, build my brand, get my name out there, do all of the things you're supposed to do. And so I was really grateful. So I'm nominated for Outlaws in the Building. I see you, Elemental. Uh, I got nominated for Best Spoken Word Artist Female. I got nominated for Slam Poet of the Year, as well as 2026 Rising Star. So I was really happy about that. If I was going to,
mm.
say any three that I would want, those would have been it. So I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad
Congrat-
at it. I don't do a very good
Congratulations.
job with, like, celebrating. Elemental knows I don't do a very good job with, like, celebrating myself, and big upping myself on my accomplishments as much as I should. So I am trying. I don't always do a great job at it, but I am trying to accept my accomplishments and wins when they come.
I fully resonate with that because I'm the last person to celebrate any successes I have. I always dismiss them, but I'm the first to praise anybody else on their achievements. So I understand where you're coming from there. And look, at the end of the day, the outcome, the result doesn't really matter. The fact that you were nominated shows that your work is valued and held in high esteem.
Yeah, I was excited. I'm not a competitive person. I know people might think that I am, but I really am not. Like I truly I do this because I love it. I enjoy the communities that I've been able and the people that I've been able to meet by being in this. And so any acknowledgement of, my work, it really is just me wanting to do something, being, halfway through kind of my life and wanting to make sure like I'm still out here moving and shaking and doing, whatever brings me joy and passion. And so anything on top of that, I really am working hard to just see as the cherry on the top. So
And I think that's important too, as well, that you enjoy what you're doing, because we do most of the work that we do is voluntarily, right? But you got to enjoy it. Like this show, the preparation work leading up to the feature. You yourself know, following up on photographs and bios, and not everybody's readily forthcoming as you were. There, some I've got to chase up right to the end.
oh,
Bios.
don't even get me started. That's the reason why I don't organize and lead stuff because my patience level with perimenopause, get somebody else to do it. I was the organizing friend for like the 20 years that I've lived here and been an adult. And I was the friend that did all of the organizing things. So now, like the way my patience is set up,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have as much patience to like be tracking people down and like doing all the things. Probably I should do it more than I do, even for myself and some of my own events. I'm just kind of like, look, y'all, like it's too much and something got to give
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Like, and even like your Friday night is, it's actually 10:30 a.m. for 10:34 a.m. for me Saturday morning. So this is my Saturday morning,
oh,
2 hours
wow.
of the
Okay.
show, and then creating the YouTube videos, creating the podcast. Literally, I could lose many hours of work, but and I get nothing from it other than the gift of being able to, or being in a place where I can feature artists that I respect and I respect their work on a global platform. That's the only benefit that I get, right? And you do what you can, but you know,
And I will
I,
say, this is my first international feature. So thank you.
there you go. So no, it's great, like, because um, with our words, once you publish or recite a poem, it's like dropping that pebble in the pond. It can have that endless ripple effect that you don't know who it can reach, who it can touch,
Absolutely.
can help, right? And that's why you do it, because
I've had
I
people
see.
send me emails or DMs from all over resonating with my words. I have a spoken word album, and my neighbor, because I'm one of those people. I don't really like do a whole lot of talking to my neighbors, like across the street, down the block, whatever. And my neighbor, like he literally can quote my spoken word album back to me word for word, and
There you,
that absolutely blew me away. I was like, wait, what?
yeah, there you go. There you go.
And so, like, having that type of connection with people,
Yeah.
or, like, even like getting different people's, like, because, poems mean different things to different people. And even though I wrote it and I know what my meaning was, like it may like mean something else, or like certain parts of it may hit differently for somebody else. And so getting that feedback and hearing like what part of the poem they felt, is just I can't explain it to anybody that's not in this field. And I only get it like on a little small level. That's probably what gives me so much respect for like big level entertainers, because I know if what I do on my little itty bitty level is so all encompassing, I can't even imagine like on a global like spectrum of some of these other people. I honestly don't know how they do it, because I mean I know they have a lot more money and they have people to help. I get all that. But like just even like the emotional toll of like what they go through, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. With this survey too, with this where you were nominated in with that event, I like the way they did the voting. One vote per device. So I had four devices, so I could only vote four times. Whereas I've seen many other competitions, they're so rigged because you get friends voting 100 times. It's not really fair. But maximum I could vote was four times. If I had more devices, yes. So, I had two laptops, my phone and my
Yeah, and
iPad. That was it.
they're really transparent too. I
Yeah.
remember I didn't even know about it until last year. Everything about my poetry journey has just been like, oh, you can do that with poetry. And so I didn't even know about it until last year. But I remember when I saw it last year, they also show the how everybody ranked out. So it's not just like a regular awards where you only see whoever the winner is. Like they will show you the like okay, like Lady K was at 60%. She got 60% of the vote. She got 15% of the vote. They will like show you the percentages of every person in the category and have that level of transparency to show that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Erica put in there that you recently did well at a competition called So Fried, and it was your
Yeah.
birthday week. She's letting out all your secrets here. Thanks,
Yeah, she
Erica.
definitely. It was so amazing. I can't even begin to tell you. So Southern Fried is one of the biggest regional competitions, the longest running in the country. It's Southern Fried Poetry Festival. It is obviously Southern regions. So this year it was in Orlando, Florida, and Southern Fried is always my birthday week. So it usually works out that I am either competing or final stage is right around my actual birthday. So this year, it was it 3 days? Yeah, 3 days of preliminary competitions, 32 teams, 32 individuals competing, and then the
Wow.
top four from teams and the top four from individuals went to final stage to compete for, obviously, oh dang, my thing is at work, so I don't have it here, but to compete for prizes and trophies and all of those things. So I competed, and thankfully, I was good enough to make it to final stage. I was the only woman to compete as an individual on final stage. And they, I wasn't gonna let those boys run over me. So I made them fight for it, and I ended up getting fourth place. But the special thing is that was on my actual birthday. So to do that on my birthday was surreal, slightly overwhelming, because to have over 200 people telling you happy birthday for like a 2.5, 3 hour time frame was slightly jarring, especially when you're competing and there's so many, like, competitive poetry is like its whole little ecosystem. And so you're strategizing poems, you're hearing other poems. There's so much going around you, to then also have the added layer of, oh, it's your birthday, happy birthday, da, 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 like in all of that frenetic energy as well. It was crazy, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It was amazing. Everybody treated me so nice. It was one of the best birthdays, if not the best birthday. I compared it to when I was a little girl. I got a Barbie dream house and a 10-speed bike on like one of my birthdays. And that to date was probably like my best birthday I could think of, besides my fifth birthday, because I got a Smurf swing set. That one was pretty good too. But this birthday, at 48, I'd have to say highly competes with the Smurf swing set and the Barbie dream house as top tier birthdays.
Well, I hope there's many, 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 many more fantastic birthdays ahead of you. That's phenomenal. That's awesome. But you say fourth place. That's nothing. That's nothing to understate, right? When you got 32 teams and 32 individual competitors, That's a hell of a lot of people. So you did coming forth there was phenomenal. That is a great gift.
Thank you. I'm a very humble person. I always tell people I like the poems. I let the poems speak for themselves. And then I do the work.
Yeah.
And there's so, competitive poetry is so subjective, and there's so many things that have nothing to do with me at all that come into it, that I look, I've been humbled enough where I'm like, I let the poems speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And so but I'm also an analyst by day. So I do data and I do formulas. So my thing is, I have prepared a package that, based on my data, gives me the best opportunities to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I make sure, and that also freed me competitively a lot. That, I used to get super nervous. I would have to have a couple, two fingers to be able to like calm my nerves down. But there was a competition, and I don't remember which one it was, but I was like, the level of anxiety and fear and just trepidation was next level. And something about competing in that competition and doing what I said I was going to do freed me in a way that, thank God, ever since that moment, I have never had that level of anxiety again.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, as long as I know that I came and I did exactly what I said I was going to do, anything that happens after that, that's in God's hands.
100%.
I can't control that. And so that was the most freeing thing for me personally. Cause look, get somebody else to do it with that level of anxiety all the time. I can't live in that like state of being. And so I just like to let the poems speak for what they are. And then we're going to let the chips fall where they may. And praise God, it's been working out.
100%. 100%. The um, I do hope you do keep, even if it's not in competitions, that you do have are able to go on with the live performances, because I think your message is powerful that people need to hear.
Yeah,
Set aside a
in two
competition.
weeks. I'm competing. This one is the biggest. So most of these competitions are all regional. They no longer have the national poetry, not in its usual like way that they used to do it. But Blackberry Peach is a competition that is still in the national conversation, I guess. I don't really know the word. But and so that one is in 2 weeks, and that is 60 folks. I made it as a finalist last year, so we will see if this year I can,
Mhm.
make the magic happen again.
Yeah.
But that's in 2 weeks in Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, most of my trips to the US have always been to the East Coast, but next time I want to
You
get to
got
the
to
West
come out
Coast.
here to Cali.
Yes, I've got to. I've got a few friends there that I'd love to meet in person. So if I do come, I'll definitely keep you posted so I
Yeah,
can see
please
when
keep
you're
me
performing
posted. And
and
we'll
see
do,
how it goes.
there's LA has a great poetry community that have welcomed me in like family. LA, I mean the Bay Area as well. I've a part of Lady K's brand is understanding that this is much bigger than me.
Yeah,
Um and so I have worked really hard to formulate lasting relationships with folks that goes outside of poetry, but also like, like just building community with folks,
yeah,
and making sure I actually check in with people. Like if you put on your Facebook that you're not feeling well, I'm gonna text you and be like, "Did you take some orange juice? Like you good? Like like, I'm gonna make sure that you're like actually good." So yeah, definitely check in. I know some amazing people out here, and we always love to like bring folks in and like show them what we do over here. Cali needs to do a little bit better with the competitions and stuff, because they keep making me have to travel all
yeah,
over the place. I can't do nothing locally. It would be nice for
yeah.
me to just be able to like hop in a car and go somewhere instead of having to always get on a plane.
Yeah, that's you got you. To me, just through our last 50 minutes of discussion, I think you got your perspective, your focus in the right place, and I think your heart is in the right place, which is most important, LadyK. It's an absolute pleasure to connect with somebody like yourself. Uh,
Thank you.
Resonates so much with. Now, also, I meant I should say the 2 hours of this show. It's all about the featured guest, and feel free. I don't come with a prescribed set agenda of questions. I just I just like the featured guest to take it to wherever they want, whatever you want to showcase of yourself to the world. Feel free to um, take the conversations, take the poetry, the work. In a minute, we'll start sharing some of your work so that
I was
people
about to
can
say
hear
we've been
it.
here for a minute.
Yeah.
We can get into some poetry.
Yeah, no, that's great. So feel free to. I have no limits on genres, on topics, so no. I just go wherever you want. It's your show. I'm just the vessel that hosts it. You just take it to wherever you like. It's your feature. What do you want to tell the world about you? You showcase.
So I think, the biggest part is, and I had to, a lot of people always say, well, I couldn't do it because I don't do it like you do. And I really like to challenge that because no one is supposed to be like anyone else. Like a big part, at least for me, I think a big part of my success has been the fact that I am authentic and there isn't anyone that can do what I do like I do it. And so authenticity and like being yourself and finding your own voice is really important and finding the stories that are important to you. Now, I do think that we have a responsibility, especially in this day and age. Um, to talk about the real things. I definitely consider myself a griot of our generation, which means that is a certain level of responsibility to challenge power dynamics, to challenge our, political systems, or anything that I feel like, we need to have some real conversations about, even conversations we need to have in our own communities
Mm,
about, what is important and what we're focusing on, especially in the world that we're living in right now. They're doing so much to erase marginalized communities' voices. Poetry is you can't stop. You can delete books, you can burn books, you can do all of that, but you can't change the words that are coming out of my mouth. So I
mm,
think it's a really big task and a duty that we have as poets, as storytellers, to carry on the traditions of our ancestors for millennia, of carrying our histories forward with our words, and our storytelling, to make sure, even if they erase every book in the library that
mm,
has to do with Black people and slavery and anything else, you'll never be able to erase my ability to tell that story and translate it to the next generation. So
mm.
I say all of that because I can be a little controversial. I can be a little controversial. And so I'm very big about not only challenging. Sometimes, if I'm gonna really be honest, I get tired of talking to other races about how they should act and the things that they should acknowledge. Like I get tired of that. Get somebody else to do it. Google is free. Go look it up. Like sometimes I don't want to always have to be your Black splainer for how I show up in the world. A lot of the conversations I like to have are actually with us, because I still think, there are subjects that we need to challenge ourselves within our own communities, about, and make sure. And I'm never trying to. Well, sometimes I am trying to change your mind because your opinion is stupid, but I, mostly what I am trying to do is make you see something from a different lens and like give you a different way to think about it, something that maybe you wouldn't have done before, that maybe allows you to go and do some research on your own, and at least be able to see where I'm coming from. So a lot of the stuff I talk about, Erica, I ain't got no filters. It's just, it is what it is. A lot of times my poetry challenges us within our own community, and what we think too. So I want to get into this piece. I, in my work a lot, go through conversations about blackness and what that's supposed to look like, because there's so many opinions about what blackness looks like, and it's supposed to, it almost is as if it has to be a monolith, and it can't be, on all sides of the fence. So this piece is a brand new piece, and let me take some water because the cadence on this one is quite fast. Hold on. But I want to get started with, I like to do new stuff, as well as I'll do some of my tried and true pieces, but I want to do some new stuff that I've been working on. Get feedback, let me know what you think. And this one is called Show Your Work. Before we begin, remove all pencils, pens, and logic from your desk. This examination cannot be completed with reason, only assumptions, instructions. This exam is timed, though somehow you've been taking it your entire life. Failure to achieve a passing score may result in the following comments. You talk white, you don't act black, you probably grew up in the suburbs. Question 1. Did you grow up in the hood? If you answered yes, explain why you couldn't escape it sooner. If you answered no, explain why you think you're black. Show your work. Question 2, hair, natural? Oh, you making a statement. Relax, trying to be white and fake braids, unprofessional. Congratulations, you've answered incorrectly. Question 3, education, too educated. You think you're better, not educated enough. Exactly what we expected. Question 4, please select all that apply. Can you swim? Can you dance? Can you fight? Do you play spades? Can you play double dutch? Please know every answer is worth negative points to somebody. Question 12, how black should you sound? Please provide your answer using someone else's expectations. Question 15, I wasn't raised in the hood. I was raised in libraries where my report cards earned standing ovations, but somehow my vocabulary became cross-examination. I learned the quickest way to question my blackness was to pronounce every syllable and still lose points. My heroes were librarians as often as lyricists. Somehow that became evidence. Question 21, when did you first learn your identity could be graded? Was it the first time someone said you sounded white? Funny. Every black man who wanted me to prove my blackness over the phone never questioned the pinkness of my pussy in person. Funny. Nobody ever says I sound like my grandmother, my teachers, or every ancestor who risked everything so I could read the language they once made illegal for us to know. Question 27, math problem. If blackness was once measured at 3/5, determine the percentage required to finally be considered enough. Round your answer to the nearest stereotype. Essay question. Please explain how descendants of people who survived chains, auction blocks, stolen names, segregation, redlining, and generations of being told they were less than still found a way to create all the beauty that is blackness and enough hope to create you. Use complete sentences. I used to think if I answered every question correctly, someone would finally hand me a passing grade. Instead, they just kept changing the rubric. Too angry, not angry enough. Too black, not black enough. Funny thing about this test, nobody ever asked who wrote it. Because if the answer key requires me to become less myself, maybe it was never measuring blackness, only conformity. So today, I am putting down the pencil because I refuse to spend another lifetime trying to pass a test my ancestors already aced with their survival. My skin was never the extra credit, the essay, or the question. It has always been the answer they refuse to accept. So, is this good enough yet? Do I finally pass the fucking test? Or maybe, just maybe, the only thing that ever failed was the goddamn exam.
That is very true. From my trips, just what I could see it was just this is who we are, this is what we need to be, and you see the young kids just stereotype on that, whether they believed it or not. including the fears, including the whole narrative about how I should behave. That you hit some very powerful things that I, as an outsider, on my visits, witnessed firsthand with my eyes. I could relate to that so much, and I love the very fact that most of my friends see me as they introduce me as meet this guy. He's as subtle as a sledgehammer because I pull no punches. I just say it like it is. And half the time, it's me making me question myself or question ourselves as to our behavior. We got no control on the narrative of the other person, right? We only have the control of our narrative. And if my behaviors are going to portray those views that somebody else holds about me, well, I'm to blame. Right? I'm responsible for that. So, and I'm so glad, Lady K, as soon as I met you, I knew here's a kindred spirit here. Like, it's very important that we look at ourselves. It's very easy to turn around and blame the governments, to blame the other communities, to blame the economy, to blame everything out there. But the last person we look at is what could I do to make my life better? And
Yeah, this has been a central. This poem and plenty of pieces that I've done regarding it have been a constant. I don't want to say battle because at this point it's not a battle, but it's just an observation. I have always been other. I grew up in a predominantly white area. I live here now in Fresno, California, which is predominantly Hispanic. So I have always been in communities where there are not as many that look like me. And so how I show up in the world as a Black woman has always been, uh, I don't want to say different because, like I said, we're not a monolith, but it has been outside of the phenotype of what it is, the stereotype of what it looks like. And so I have struggled with that, my entire life. And so there are a lot, I find myself coming back to that theme quite often. I have a piece called Acquired Blackness. I have, a few pieces, some version of the little Black girl that had, that was articulate and had a high vocabulary and things like that, didn't grow up in, the ghetto or have the stereotypical Black experience growing up. My parents, were upper middle class. They both were in the home, which, we can have further conversations on a different date on if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And, so I have pieces about that too, about how, you make these assumptions of what constitutes, a great childhood or, the typical like Blackness or something like that. And I promise you, at least for me, I will probably challenge every single one of those perceived notions that you have with how I actually grew up. So pieces like this, come up in my writing quite often, just because it's been a central theme throughout my life.
I think it's important to do that because, look, I think it's not taken away from any of the injustices that happen, particularly in the US. I mean, to the rest of the world, sometimes the US seems really so like 100 years behind, in their time, right? It's crazy and
Yeah,
it's
you ain't
barbaric to
gotta
think.
tell me.
It's barbaric to think that they still hang people because of their color, right? That's just. Matter of fact, I was listening to a piece by Ray Jane today called "The Hanging." I was talking to Arsenio a few weeks ago about through Juneteenth month about the hangings that are happening. I mean, that's just crazy in this day and age. When this is like savage, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's almost like a
I mean,
perverted sense of.
I think the thing that makes it like crazy is the fact that the US will not acknowledge the fact that it's crazy. That's
Mm,
the part that bothers me. Like,
mm.
it's not, I mean, you're going to have racist people that do things. That part is what it is. But the fact that it's not like overwhelmingly condemned by the country and the powers that be that we live in, or even acknowledged as the root of what it is as
Yeah.
racism, is the part that aggravates me, because I'm always like, I just call a thing a thing.
Yeah.
I would rather you just call a thing and we move past it. But
Yeah.
to just continue to not acknowledge where the foundation lies and what the root of the problem is. Like I said, I'm an analyst, so maybe that's my analyst brain, but like, just identify the problem.
Yeah.
Like, if you never identify the problem, then we can't even move forward.
Yeah.
So that's always my issue.
And in living up to the expectations or the accusations, you literally become a prisoner to somebody else's view, right? Like
Absolutely.
people can
We
think
just
that,
had, I mean, the latest hanging, well, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty more that we don't hear about, but that was just in like May,
yeah,
or like, it was like within the last couple of months
yeah,
that like some child in, some southern town was hanged on a college campus. And so the fact that this stuff is still so prevalent, we just literally yesterday, a black boy that went missing. And then unfortunately, his body was discovered with a group of the only black kid amongst a group of white kids. And the fact that we can't, we know pretty much what probably went into some of that. But the fact that I just don't know how we will ever be able to heal and move forward if we never can just acknowledge things for what they are.
yeah, yeah,
And that's where I get stuck, because I feel like we're constantly ramming our head up against the wall because we won't ever just acknowledge the thing. And if we don't do that, I don't know how you heal if you won't like identify the wound.
yeah.
So yeah.
The missing persons, that astounds me. Erica quite often posts stories on
Yeah.
number of people missing, and it astounds me. Like, that's horrendous. Like, not saying that we don't have it here, but for every one that might disappear here, there's 100 or 1,000 over there, right? That's just crazy numbers. But I think your message is, I think it's healthy, because if I was accused by society or by a person about a certain behavior, if I become a prisoner to that, then I'm giving weight to their perception or their accusation. Whereas if I continued being me, trying to being me, not the stereotype, then that negates the power of that accusation, right? Or that perception.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I think that's what frustrates me, is that
Yeah.
we keep acting like stuff doesn't exist. We think if we don't say it, that means that it's not real. And that's obviously not the case. And so I I've developed, unfortunately, a certain level of apathy that probably I shouldn't have. But you get tired sometimes of always being the loudest one in the room, and always being the one to call out the things. Sometimes I don't want to always have to be that voice.
Mm.
So I definitely have taken a back seat currently in this current political climate, especially over here, because and Elemental knows he hosts a weekly online open mic for New Eurekan Poets Cafe, and I did a piece one week, and it was about like our politics and stuff like that, and I was saying that I can't constantly be enraged like
Yeah.
this. Like, it's not healthy for my state of being to be like this all the time. So like, I used to watch all the political shows. I was up on all the commentary. I had, I did all of the things to make sure I stayed informed about what was going on, because I work for the federal government. So this stuff directly affects me and my paycheck when
Mm.
stuff happens. So I but I, for my own sanity, had to take a step back from immersing myself in it so much, because I realized it wasn't healthy, because I just was constantly in a state of being pissed off and angry, and I mean, at some point, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm sad that I have to be here to experience it.
Yeah.
And all I can hope is that it don't blow up too bad that we can't come back from it during my lifetime.
Mm.
And that's really all I
Yeah.
can do at this point, because I can't continue. I can't continue to be the loudest one in the room when I feel like I'm in a room by myself.
I think our word, yes, carries weight, but I think more often than not, and I firmly believe this, the way we live our life, our actions sometimes speak louder than words. Like I, from a very young age, I lost my father when I was 12. Since then, I never cared for what society or the community I lived in thought was the right way. Even growing up in high school, I was always did what I believed right. I dressed the way I wanted to, not the way society. I've never get, to be honest, to be blank, I never gave a raw shit about what society believes or acts or does. I am me, and in living that, most people who were in my presence or came into contact with me, sometimes they take those thoughts away. We don't need to wear this label. We don't need to act like this. Sometimes our actions, you living your life with that mindset, sometimes um, has a big impact on people. People see, and then it triggers their thoughts. Oh, I don't have to be like this.
Yeah. And that's what I've tried to do. I just try and live my life by
Yeah,
example. If you ask me a question, I absolutely will like talk about it, but I'm less likely now to just be the one to be like, well, did you know about this? And what about this? And did
yeah,
you know about this?
yeah,
Like, I will definitely engage in a conversation,
yeah,
um, when it is warranted, but I also am not the first one. I'm not a big debater
yeah,
anyway. I'm not going to argue with you over stuff. Go to Google. It's free.
yeah,
I'm not, check your sources, cite your sources, because we all can find an argument for whatever it is that we think is right.
yeah,
And so it's just a matter of, figuring out like where you want to land on that stuff. And I'm no longer the type that's going to argue you down about whatever you believe in. If you ask me a question about what I believe, I will tell you the reason why, and I will give you the reasons and the sources that I have for it. And then you can go and do your own research from there.
yeah.
But I'm not about to sit there and debate certain things.
100%, 100%. There's so much alike, LadyK. As I said, I live my life. I don't try to force my views and my actions and my outlook on life on somebody else. But if they ask me, uh, one thing I do need to learn is a little bit more gentleness, a bit more subtlety, because I just come down like a steam train, subtle, direct. I call an idiot, and that's it, you know. Um,
Yeah, I definitely, I'm probably a little too nice with it sometimes. I will walk away before I start arguing with you. Especially at this point in my life. Look, I'm going through perimenopause. These hot flashes are kicking my butt. It's 108 degrees outside. There are many things that I can be upset about. Me arguing with you is not about to be one of them. So I will walk away before and that's probably a defense mechanism, I'm sure, but I will walk away before I start arguing with anybody at
yeah,
this point. It's just never going to be about that. But since we are talking about faith, I think I did this piece for you before when we were on live together, but I don't know. I can't remember. So I'm constantly working on evolving pieces and changing the dynamic of them. I'm also always challenging myself. So I have a religious piece that talks about like my faith. And the funny thing is, for as many things as you heard me talk about in the wide range of subject matter and like the deepness and vulnerability that I get into with my work, the piece about religion was surprisingly my hardest piece to write and then share with others. And I think that has to do with, uh, and like I said, once again, me being Black, that's my lived experience. So that's what I know. But Black folks feel real particular about religion. And they are so, and, challenging their belief system, on religion and stuff like that is really hard. So when I did this piece, I was very nervous that it wasn't going to resonate with folks and that they were going to challenge me, because it does make you think, because this was the first piece that I ever wrote talking about my religious journey. So slight backstory. I was, my mother is Baptist. I was, baptized obviously as a child, but then I went to a Catholic school from like when I was young till fourth grade. So, did the whole thing, first communion, all of the, Catholicism stuff at that school. Then when I got to fourth grade, I went to a regular school, but then I started going back to Baptist churches with my, family and stuff. But they were never like super religious, but they definitely did go to church. When I got to a teenager, where I lived, like I told you, I grew up in primarily in non-Black spaces. And so the area was white Pentecostal. So then I ended up going to a white Pentecostal church all throughout, pretty much like from, I'd say, about like 11 to 17-ish, around there, right? So then you have that influence in you. And then when I came to California, my ex-husband was Muslim. And so then I was exposed to Islam. And so I had that, like undering. So my religious journey has been very eclectic. And I'm also a kid, just in general, that enjoyed studying religion. Like, it has been fascinating for me to study every form of organized religion just as a hobby. Like, so yeah, I was a weird kid, probably. So that is kind of the backstory behind this piece, but I understand that that is not a traditional experience religiously. And so, and I also, because you've seen how I am in my work, I also challenge systems, and I've always had a lot of questions. And one thing that I have learned about religion is a lot of religion doesn't like when you ask a whole lot of questions. They prefer, you read it, it says what it's supposed to say, and you go along with the program. And I am not that type of person. And so that's where this piece came from. So I will share this piece real quick. It is one of my favorite, it's become one of my favorite poems, and it is called Beyond the Lines. Amen, amen, amen. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A greeting, yet you flinch. Your mind shackled by a single phrase that carries more weight than its simple meaning. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. You see me through a lens of misconception, faith as a locked door, my worth measured by your approval. But I've outgrown those constraints. I seek peace beyond the borders of doctrine. I embrace the quiet truth that hums beneath every prayer. Why burn books and ban questions? Because knowledge is the edifying equalizer, and that scares those who need control to maintain their confused sense of piety. I was baptized Baptist, school within a Catholic schoolhouse, cleansed by holy waters, given the sacrament as first communion, scolded in pulpits that preach grace but frowned at pants on women. I was taught silence in the language of sermons, told that obedience was holiness and submission sacred. From the garden to the minaret, from the altar to the ark, they've been writing me out since the beginning. Covered my power in cloth neck to ankle, while men stroll with knees exposed, free to lead, speak to question. Modesty's burden laid at our feet, their weakness, our sin. Across scriptures and sanctuaries, I was called distraction. Less than or never enough unless I was quiet, covered, and small. I worshiped beside alabaster hues and Pentecostal pews. I found Islam in my 20s and hate in a stranger's eyes. Why did you blow up those buildings as if my hijab were the subterfuge? I mean the fuse. By my 40s, I knew God was not confined to a single path, yet I feel like protest for coloring outside the lines you drew without asking. Never discuss religion or politics, they say, but maybe silence is the problem. Do you think it's a coincidence that the epicenter of three great faiths rests beneath the same skies? Jerusalem, claimed by Judaism's longing, Christianity's salvation, and Islam's ascension, all tracing back to Abraham, yet still shattering like blood-stained glass by conquest and creed. Everyone wants a corner of what should be common ground, Mecca and meaning marred by man-made borders. Isn't it funny how we all argue over who God loves more, as if heaven has a velvet rope? What if God is not in doctrine, but the breath between us? So I ask again, is it coincidence or calling that the holiest of places rest in the heart of conflict, not to test our faith, but to test our humanity? Maybe God isn't waiting behind some velvet rope choosing sides. Maybe God is waiting to see who dares to build a bridge instead of drawing a line. Now this poem is both sermon and sword, a sacred archive. See? Who said a woman couldn't preach?
That is so on point. That is so on point. Interestingly, I found when I removed, like I was brought up in Catholicism. My family still are, my extended family are still staunch Catholics. But I found when I removed myself out and I looked at Hinduism, I looked at Muslim, I looked at the Krishna, the Vishnus, the Muhammads, the Jesuses, they all say the same thing, just with a different fucking name, right?
You know what? And that's the reason why I don't get into too many religious conversations with folks, because the deeper you study actual religion, the more questions you're going to have. And I understand that for some people, they cannot reconcile those things. I'm the person that I appreciate complexity. I can live inside multiple realities and understand like commonality. And so for me, it's not jarring. But I do understand that that is not how everybody can function. They need the structure of believing in a certain way. And the more you study religion, the more you will find that a lot of those paths really start crossing and intertwining, and they're rooted in a lot of fundamentally questionable things. So I tread. That was the reason why it was so hard to write that poem, because I respect everybody's. It's never my want to dismantle somebody's belief system. That's not my job in the world. I am not God. I'm not trying to be God. I don't want that mantle. Look, no. So I always tread real lightly when it comes to that, because I have studied religion. And so I have very concrete things that are contradictions that I am okay with. I just know not everybody's going to be okay with that.
At the end of the day, to me, we all know what's right within ourselves, right? I live a very spiritual life, but I don't walk into any church or any.
Absolutely same.
I know what's right and wrong, and when I read the philosophies or the theology behind each of the, as I said, Hinduism, Muslim, Christianity, I see the same thing just with a different label. And sadly, because I want to call my believer that I'm a believer in Jesus, and somebody else wants to call I'm a believer in Muhammad, so let's go and fucking kill each other. Let's go to war, right? You look at history. Every war that in history has been founded of the root cause has been a religion.
Yeah. And because that is such a core thing for most people. And like I said, I get it. We all need to have something that we can hold on to be able to make sense
Mm.
out of certain things that
Mm.
don't make sense.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah.
And so that's I understand where the logic comes from of needing to believe, needing to have that foundation. And when that foundation is ripped out from under you, some people don't know how to function anymore without that base that they've always had instilled in them. And so they don't ask questions. I mean, since I literally was a little girl, that was the part that got me in trouble the most in church, was that I asked too many dang on questions, because I was like, but I don't understand. I was like, but why we all got to have the same version of the book in order for us all to be able to? That was the very first question I asked, is why is there different versions of the book?
Mm.
That was the first time I got in trouble at like
Yeah.
7.
Well, look at Christianity. How many started off with as Christians, and look how many sects of Christianity there. As you said before, you got the Protestant, the Pentecostals, you got Catholics, you got Church of England, because the fucking king couldn't
Exactly.
marry,
Church
right?
of God in Christ. You
Yeah.
got so many like different,
But
and then even like amongst black, like culturally, there are different sects amongst like even within Christianity, and like even as a Baptist, like there's Kojic, there's Pentecostal, there's Jehovah's Witness. There's so many different ways that you can go. And so yeah, it just becomes real convoluted. So I stay out of those conversations, because like I said, I'm not a theologian. I've
so
studied, I've read up on stuff, and I know what I know, and I keep it at that, and I keep it moving. I'm much a spiritual person as well, way more than religious person, and I'm okay with that. Me and God got a great conversation going on, and that's all I care about.
look, you're so right. Even the Sikh religion, there's 18 or 19 sects, and
Wow.
in that environment, a Sikh marrying a Sikh from another sect, they literally kill each other. They'll burn villages. They'll get into war because, or they'll disown family members
It's the
because.
same way in Islam. It's the same way in, certain, parts of religious or Baptist or Christian family. So yeah, it just gets very convoluted. And so I love that piece now, but I was real scared to introduce that piece, just because I know how people feel about their faith.
That's look. As I said, you made a comment before. If you need something to look up to give you strength, certainly. But to me, you should never surrender the power of yourself to anybody else. When I fell out with the church I was 22, and I had the parish priest saying one thing, the assistant parish priest saying another. First thing I said, you two fucking clowns need to get your own perspective aligned. Secondly, I don't need, at the end of the day, underneath that robe, you are a human being exactly like me. I don't need to come and confess my sins to you. I can analyze myself in my own meditations, lying in the quietness of my darkness of my room, ask myself, was that right? Was that wrong? Should I don't need you to tell me that I
Good
did
for you.
wrong, right?
Good for you. A lot of
I
people
was
don't have the
22.
strength to be able to do that.
I was
Yeah, I like I said, I was 7 when I first asked that question. When I grew up Baptist, it was a big deal. That part that I put in the poem, scolded by preachers who preached piety but frowned at pants on women. I literally had to get a whole leather, and I had to have a church board authorize me to be able to wear pants
mm,
at my church,
mm,
because I had had surgery on my ankle, and or on my leg, and so my leg is deformed, and so I was extremely, it's been like that since I was 12 years old, and I'm extremely, well, not now, but I was extremely self-conscious about it, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to wear skirts because I didn't want to have it shown, and so I had to have a whole committee give me approval to be able to freaking wear pants at church.
See, this is where, as I said before, that I never conformed to community. My own parents, my own family couldn't tell me what the hell what I could wear. So I'll be damned if somebody in society is going to tell me what the hell to wear, because if they did, they'll be
Yeah, it was a
fertilizing daisies
whole,
out
that was, you remember when I said that I switched over to the Pentecostal
there.
church at that age? That was around the reasoning for it, because I
Yeah,
was like, now, look, the fact that I have to, and then some people, but even though I got permission, there were still some ladies on the usher board and stuff like that that questioned me all the time because I had pants on. So
yeah,
it's almost like I needed to walk around with this letter proving the fact that I had got permission to be able to wear pants. And I was like, you know what? I'm out. I'm out.
yeah.
It's too much.
Uh, I love the diversity of the first piece to this, and it's that this is what I love about your work. You cover so many topics, but you hit there, you cut right to the core. I love that in your work, Lady K. And I love your reasoning and your mind behind it. I really do.
Yeah, I try and be intentional when I'm probably, I don't know what's going on with me as I get older. My brain fires at like 15 million like neutrons a second.
Mm.
And so I'm constantly, I probably should sleep more. Um,
I used to say to
my
my
brain
kids,
is constantly like going through like different concepts and like what could be a poem or this or oh, what about this? Today it was the Matrix, and like who convinced us that all of the things in our lives fit into these two tiny pills? What if there was a third pill?
yeah,
Like why? So like my brain is constantly, I one time it was like I heard the term on Facebook, quantum entanglement, and that sparked a whole, I am constantly thinking of things, and then I'm like, ooh, I could write about this. Like it really is probably not healthy, but I am, my
yeah.
brain is always thinking of something, and then, oh, I want to write a poem about that on everything.
I live my life with the belief that I'll have plenty of time to sleep when I'm dead. So while I'm alive, I'm just going to be doing. I try to get the
Me and
most of this
you are
day.
kindred spirits because I say the same thing. My mom gets mad at me every time I say that, but
Yeah,
I literally think the same thing. Like,
yeah,
I get a couple hours, every once in a while
yeah,
I'll get 6. I feel like that's catching
yeah,
up. But I think it also comes from, for like 15 years of my life, I worked 3 jobs, like 23 hours a day.
yeah.
So I very rarely got sleep. So I think my body is like conditioned for that level
Yeah.
of deprivation.
I know where you come
So
from.
I just kind of move with it.
Yeah. Lady K, we've got about 30 minutes left, so happy for you to do some rapid fire pieces just to showcase your work. But also, honestly, I've found I have not felt that 90 minutes have expired so fast because I think you're a very interesting conversationalist. I think
Thank
your views are
you.
very healthy. I think your poetry is amazing. But I think you harbor very healthy views. And I think what we were saying before, somebody in some corner of the world hearing this conversation even could give them that strength to start living and believing in who they are and not about conforming to society or parents or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the last topic that I'll talk about is, so like I said, my work, I usually will circle around central themes, and then like I will pull out pieces, or pieces come out of me that kind of like rotate around the same access of a subject until I feel like I've exercised it in a way. So a big thing for me is me as a Black woman, me as a plus size woman, and I don't know if it in how it is in Australia, but there are so many opinions on how a woman should be. What they should look like, what their body type should be, how they show up sexually in their, autonomy of themselves, everything like that. And so one thing that I actually started last year was being very, when you see social media, you see the polished version of who the person is. You see how they, they're the character that they want to present to you of who they are. And I realized that that's not always my most authentic self. As a plus size Black woman, and I can't say it's the same everywhere in the United States, but definitely in California, at least from my Kwamise's LadyK's experience, how I am as a plus size woman, even within my own family, has been a very big deal. So I started being much more transparent about what that journey looked like. Because there are days that I have done whole performances and deleted the entire footage because I couldn't stand the way I looked in the video. And when I entered this world of being a public person, that then meant that I couldn't control the images that were out there all the time of me. And I had to really do some self-work of being okay with that, because there are times where, the pandemic came, I gained a little bit of weight. I am definitely a fuller version of myself than I used to be, even though when I was that previous version of myself, I had gotten that small because I was sick. And so, but I kind of, I gained weight. And so the version of me that is out there, I had to do some work to be okay with it, because sometimes it was like, ooh, that's a lot of LadyK. And, so my work started kind of circling around that theme. And I did a piece that I always say I'm not a controversial person or confrontational person, but if you piss me off, I'm definitely going to write a poem about it. Definitely going to write a poem about it. And so this piece, and so I have two pieces that are in this genre, and that should probably kind of take us through the last part of it or whatever. But so this first one is called Ripest Fruit. And it really came from a place of being transparent with what that journey of me accepting myself in all of my sides of me look like, and also talking to the critics and acknowledging that sometimes your biggest critics are those closest to you, which means it's people in your family. And so that's where this piece came from. And it's called Ripest Fruit. I was born honey thick, a body full of summer's promise, hips like ripe mangoes, arms soft as the flesh of a peach. But in my family's kitchen, love came with a knife, peeling, slicing, paring me down to what they thought was easier to swallow. My mother led the carving, trimming herself down to fit the frames that were never built for us. She wore depression like a virtue, sipped on self-denial like fine wine, said she didn't want me to suffer the way that she had. The world would never be kind to a body like mine, but I heard the tremblings beneath her warnings. She was never overweight, just weighed down by someone else's idea of beauty, a European ghost whispering that her curves were curses, that her worth was measured by what she could disappear into. And yet here I stood, unapologetic, round and radiant, loving myself in ways she never could. Maybe that's what stung the most, that I dared to cherish what she had spent a lifetime trying to erase, that I let my body exist without wars. But some days the war finds me. Some days the mirror is cruel and I trace the outlines of my body like an apology. Some days I wear the weight of my skin like an anchor, but I cannot say this out loud. I can't let them see the cracks. I can't give them the satisfaction of knowing that some nights I pinch at my reflection and I hear only their voices. Because the moment I confess that my love for myself is sometimes a trembling thing too, the floodgates will open. See, I knew you couldn't possibly love yourself. I knew it was all an act, so I stay silent. Carry my doubts alone, whisper them into my pillows, let them settle on my chest like fruit left out in the sun. I know I need to find a love for my body that does not feel like defiance, like a fig splitting under the sun, too full of sweetness to hold itself together. But I am trying. Every day I'm trying to love myself in all my stages, the bloom, the bruises, the overripe sweetness of a body that has carried so much but refuses to be discarded. But I still hide. Tuck my beauty in the back of the fridge where light never touches it and confidence turns cold. But I am done letting their taste buds turn my joy to doubt. I'm not overripe. I'm bursting. I'm lush, alive. And if you cannot stomach my sweetness, if you can't fathom how I feast on self-love without gagging on their guilt, then let them all starve on a love so decadent it drowns their judgment, even when that judgment is my own.
Oh, that's so many beautiful, powerful lines within that. And I think it's sad that a vast majority, and this is in any community, it's all about appearance. Whereas to me, always the heart within, the authenticity is all that's mattered, irrespective of how you looked. And I'm constantly saying to people, I don't spend time with you because of the way you look, but it's more about the conversations that I can have with you, the depth of those conversations, the person you are, your behaviors, your views of the world. That's what matters to me. I remember once, many years ago, I was dating this. She was an absolutely gorgeous woman. We'd been traveling, so we've been living off a suitcase of luggage for a while. And one night we were going, on our last night, we were going out to dinner, and I got dressed and I was out in the balcony having a cigarette, and she was getting angry with herself getting dressed. Anyway, I'd never said anything, and we went out to dinner. So once we were into dinner, I said, so what was all the frustration and the anger about while you were getting dressed? She said to me, she goes, it's our last night, and everything I put on was crimpled and crushed and didn't sit right, and I wanted to look beautiful for you tonight.
Aww.
And I said, I'm touched that you did, but tell me, what do I do if tomorrow you're in an accident, car accident or something, and you end up in a wheelchair as a paraplegic? Do I stop loving you?
Oh, you better go. Yay. I love this.
Next thing, she's got tears pouring into her elegant meal.
I can
But that's the
imagine.
reality, right? That's the reality. Today, we share time because of what we are. But tomorrow, I go out now, I can be in an accident, I could end up in a wheelchair with no either para or quad with no movement. You're going to stop. Does that end our friendship? Does that end end who I am?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that has taken me a very long time to come to, like, I don't want to say grips with, but just to accept myself in who I am right now. And there's so many ways that we get bombarded from all different directions about, especially as a woman, and when it comes to our feminine, like what represents our femininity, our sexuality, our attractiveness, all of those things are constantly like going through our own mind. And then you start getting these like inherent like thoughts of, oh, well, I must not just be the pretty one or the whatever, because I don't fit, the stereotype of what that is. And like I said, it's geographical,
Mm.
depending on where you are, at least from my experience. But I tell people all the time, like out here, like folks ain't really checking for women that look like me, especially then when you add in being, educated, a higher earner, independent. All of these things start becoming demerits instead of bonuses.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so you just end up kind of conditioning yourself to not expect
Mm.
those things.
Mm.
And so, and to the point where you don't even realize
Yeah.
that you're doing it anymore. And so it takes, a special someone or whatever to just remind you that you are desirable and beautiful and things like that. And, I appreciate that I have that in, my life or whatever. Because it just becomes, and so that's why it was important for me to write pieces like that, to acknowledge that thing, because I'm really big on fashion, so my love of poetry and fashion are probably neck and neck. So I show up in a certain way in public, and so it was important to me to kind of break the wall, break the fourth, the fourth layer, so to speak, and explain that journey to confidence is not 100% of the time
Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination. And so those are probably that's one of my most impactful pieces, because of the transparency that I exposed in that, of just my own journey to loving myself and loving my body. And it's not, I could wake up tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
But, like I said, it makes a big difference when you have those that make you feel beautiful regardless.
LadyK, feeling self-conscious is not just limited to women either. I recently had
Yeah.
a friend of mine that I've known since high school days, and we catch up. He, about 10 months ago, he had a melanoma cut and he had a huge scar like official.
Mm.
He was conscious to come out with the rest of the group for dinner because this scar, and I said, man, it doesn't change who you are.
Yeah, and that's good to know too. I hope, I have a male poet that's a friend of mine that is a bigger man, and he also talks about, like, his experience being a plus size man and stuff like that. And I just think it's very important for us to continue telling those stories from all sides of the coin,
Mm.
just because it's real. It's, it's something that we don't talk about as much. And so it's important. It's an important conversation to have. But yeah, I definitely have and that's what I love about poetry, because, I've had white women, I've had black men, like everybody from every different facet is talking about this subject.
Mm.
Maybe, with different little tweaks, but they're
Mm.
talking about similar things, which means that we all live similar and have lived experiences. And this is my TED talk for the day. I feel like if we could focus more on the things that we have in common, instead of all of the things that we choose to use to separate us,
Yeah.
then we would be much better as a society and a people.
The
That is my TED talk for the day.
the sad thing is such a high percentage of people see the physical appearance as what important. From the day we're born, that starts aging. We're all going to end up like wrinkled old prunes. I see beautiful, I know, I've dated beautiful women, but they were conscious about, absolutely stunning, but conscious about the size of their breast. I've seen others, they're conscious about their culture, they're conscious about their years or some just stupid things. And I'm
I
going,
always
all this shit's not going to matter at the end of the day. I'm spending time with you because of the person within. Right?
Now, the only thing that I probably am still kind of biased about is my girlfriends that I know of that do fit the stereotype. Now, when they are complaining more than I do, then I'm like, now shut up.
Yeah.
Because you have Absolutely. But I get it. Like we all have things that we pick apart about ourselves. But I do. My girlfriends that I have that fit the, the aesthetic, so to speak, um, of society, I do fuss at them when they start picking themselves apart. Cause I'm like, I know you lying. Cause I know if I'm over here confident, you damn well
Yeah.
better be confident when you come into the room. So yeah, it's our like running joke. Cause I have a couple of girlfriends I'm
Yeah.
like, that y'all don't say it around me because I'll be damned if y'all gonna sit there and talk about your guts or whatever. And I'm looking at a super flat stomach and I'm rocking what I'm rocking over here. Everybody be quiet.
Look, I'm just, I've been blessed with good health. I'm grateful for that, but I live with that could end any time. I don't look at that as a lasting thing. And every day that I wake up breathing, standing up vertical, I'm grateful for, and I'll continue being me. That's.
Yeah, I have adopted that as I've gotten older. Obviously we're not gonna sit there and say that, science is not real and that, there aren't things that you can do to prolong your life and be healthy and all of those things. But I have put way less pressure on myself
Mm,
to live within like whatever box they say that, we all need to live in because there's so many variables that go into all of that stuff.
mm,
I just try and live a balanced life. I don't overindulge, but I'm also, if I want a piece of bread, I'm gonna have a piece of bread. If I want a glass, a cocktail, give me the sugar. Like
mm.
I would live my life and enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um, just all in moderation. That's my main thing at this point in my life is just to be happy, be as healthy as I possibly can,
and be you.
and enjoy my life to the best of my ability because there's every other day something that was good for you is no longer good for you,
Yeah,
especially over here in America. Child, they put everything in the stuff to take us out on a daily basis. So
yeah, yeah. Sadly, it's become almost at a global level. Sadly.
yeah, it really is. We like I said, I sometimes I try and not go too much into the doomsday, like where do we go from here type of attitude, because sometimes it just is so overwhelming because there's so many things. Mama Betty, like there's so many things that we are bombarded with day in and day out.
Yeah,
So I just
yeah,
I sometimes I just throw up my hands and I'm like,
yeah.
I hope I'm doing it right. And if not, I'm gonna try and live my life to the fullest until I'm
Lady,
not here no more.
Lady K, as I say to a lot of featured guests that I do value particularly, this is only the first time. It's not the last time. This door is always open to you. When you've got things happening, just hit me up and say, "Hey, Rainier, I've got this happening. Love to get on a feature and talk about this." And or I'm happy to do even a part two to this because I think it's been an interesting conversation through, and I think we didn't do justice to the amount of piece in showcasing your work. The reason I limit the show to 2 hours is because above 2 hours, Instagram doesn't archive the file. A lot of it
Yeah.
loses down. So, but I'm happy to do a part two if you're up for it, because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot more for you to showcase and to talk about. I've got one slot left at the end of October, but otherwise I'll be starting the show back on the 15th of January. I've got somebody booked for that, but the 29th of Jan, early in the new year, or um, I think the one slot left here. I'd love to do a second part with you
Absolutely.
where we can
I had a
just
good time. I appreciate, being like competing so often. You don't get to have these conversations
yeah,
like the whys behind your work and why you wrote the piece or what you wanted to like convey with the piece or whatever. So I appreciate opportunities like this to be able to um to give kind of the whys behind, some of my pieces that mean the most to me. Because a lot, obviously when you're competing, you got 3 minutes,
Yeah.
no talking, just do the poem and then go sit down. So
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yeah.
opportunities like this
No,
where I can
and
talk
I
more
think
about the pieces.
I personally find a lot of satisfaction, a lot of joy in getting to know the person behind the work, like understanding you. I mean, when we met last time, as Miss Betty said, there you go, please do a part two. I will be on time. I remember the
I
first
love
time
you, Mama Betty. I miss you.
when I heard you and I heard your work, yes, I resonated with those pieces and I resonated so closely with the piece you resonated today. But in these 2 hours of our conversations and me knowing Kwamise Fletcher, the person behind the work actually is more enriching to me because I
Oh,
understand
thank
where you're
you.
coming from, so and this is why I let the person, and not everybody's comfortable of showing a lot of themselves, which is fine, but if they are, as I said, it's all about the guest and they can take the show wherever they want.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate that. And I'm an open book child. You ain't never got to worry about me being able to talk. Because, like I said, it's fun to be able to have this side where you get to know the artist behind it.
yeah,
Lately, I actually have a lot of pieces that talk about that because as you become more and more of a personality, like LadyK becomes the whole thing. And so, but I'm still Kwamise. And
yes,
so, like, reconciling even myself between, who LadyK is, but hey, Kwamise is still here too.
yes,
Like, that is even right now, that is a current thing that I go through. And like I said, in no way level of some of these higher people, but like, even on my little level, like, I can be going down the street, going to get lunch at work, and they're like, Lady K, and I'm like, what is happening here? So, like, even in my own little small way, like reconciling, becoming like a personality, and doing, all of the things that go along with that. It takes a lot. It is a little bit of an adjustment that you have to make with like your personalities, and so that's why I get happy to be able to share more of Kwamise and the stories behind it, so that it's not just the persona of Lady K.
yeah. All right. Now we've got probably time for a closing piece.
Okay, you want something new or you want tried and true? It's up to you.
Whatever takes your fancy, whatever you feel like expressing, whatever's in your heart.
No, you gonna make me pick? All right, we'll do something new. Hold on. We'll end it with that. Okay.
I haven't heard any of your pieces that I was disappointed in. So whatever you recite, I'm going to be more than thrilled with.
So since I was just talking about some of the reconciling between Lady K and Kwamise, we'll do
Elemental
this
said
piece.
new shy, if that's anything.
Oh, new shit. That's what he's saying.
Ah, new shit.
um.
Sorry, I missed the
So
T.
no problem. So this is called the Siren Song of Lady K.
I love that title.
Hmm. Thank you. Hmm. Oh, yeah. Funny. Everybody remembers the moment the siren loses her voice. Nobody asks what she was trying to say before they took it. They keep calling me a siren, as if I was born to lure people toward destruction. I've never wanted anyone to drown. I've only ever wanted them to stop pretending they couldn't hear themselves. See, every room has its own kindling. The grief nobody mentions, the shame everybody inherited, the dreams left untouched because fear kept whispering, there'd always be tomorrow. I'm simply the sound that reminds them fire was always a possibility. People always say, ask me why I say, let's go, poet. They think it's a catchphrase, an introduction, a little encouragement before someone takes the stage. But what if it has always been something else? What if every time I say it, I'm sending a distress signal disguised as an invitation, hoping somebody, somewhere, hears the woman behind the voice. They don't realize I've been handing people matches. Funny thing about being the one who lights everybody else's fire, when the room finally empties, you're the one left holding the match, because poetry has never been about performing. It's about combustion, about once watching one honest sentence ignite everything. A lie worked years to build. One poem can reduce an entire childhood to ash and somehow leave behind the first fertile soil you've ever known. That's the thing about controlled burns. From the outside, they look like destruction. Until spring arrives, where a forest used to be, every feature feels a little like standing on an island. Hundreds of people hear the song. People leave carrying pieces of it. Very few ever wonder what happens to the singer after the music stops. They warned us not to play with fire. Nobody warned the fire about the poets, because we've always been dangerous. Not because we know how to scream, because we know where silence stores gasoline. Funny, Black women are expected to extinguish everyone else's fires, then get called too much the moment we admit we're burning. Women keep getting asked to lower their voices. Nobody asks who keeps striking the matches. Every generation inherits a little smoke, then gets blamed for coughing. People love fireworks as long as the explosives are scheduled, predictable, decorative. Nobody likes the kind that blows apart a belief they've been living in. Every poem I've ever written has been an attempt to strike the right match, not to burn people down, to burn away every version of ourselves built for someone else's comfort. I've watched whole identities go up in smoke only to discover the person standing in the ashes was finally themselves. So no, don't mistake my voice for an alarm. An alarm tells you to run. A siren asks you what's worth running towards. Maybe the siren inside me was never calling people to safety. Maybe she was calling every poet brave enough to stop asking permission, because somewhere in the audience is someone still carrying a version of themselves that has never been given permission to explode. Maybe they've mistaken survival for living, confused comfort with peace. Maybe they spent their whole lives protecting the very cage that's keeping them small. So let's go, poet. Light it, not the room, the lie, the fear, the silence, whatever has been surviving on your obedience. They think I'm asking poets to take the stage. Maybe I've always been asking someone to meet me there, because every revolution began the moment someone decided today felt like a wonderful day to fuck around and find out. They keep calling me a siren. Maybe they're right, just not for the reason they think, because I've never been the fire. I've always been the voice that reminds people they don't have to keep living in the smoke. And every time I say, let's go, poet, something that was never meant to survive doesn't.
What happens to the singer when the music stops? That just says everything that we were talking about before, right? When does it change who the singer was? Does it change who we are? That is, yeah.
I'm trying to do more with, so I can sing a little, a dibble and dabble, and so, but it's a really important part of my artistry, and so as I evolve more as a performer and an artist, I am trying to find ways that I'm comfortable with to incorporate all sides of my artistry, and I also am a saxophone player,
Wow.
so I'm gonna figure out. I haven't played in a long time, so that would take some practice. But I played for like 15 years, so I want to I want to be a well-rounded, all-inclusive artist, and so I'm gradually bringing more pieces of what makes me an artist into the public.
Yeah. Now, this show is, as I said, it's all about whatever the artist wants to feature. Part two, if you want to bring your sax along and play a couple of pieces, you're most
Oh,
welcome.
that would be fun! Oh, that would
Yes.
be so fun. Yeah,
If
I
you want
like
to
that.
sing, let's do that. If you want to recite poetry, let's do that. Yeah, bring your sax and play some pieces. 15 years, I'm sure that you'll be very accommodating. I think it'd be
Now,
awesome to do.
I played for 15 years. That was 30 years ago. So,
Between now and part two, just pull out the saxophone, get the dust off it. So
so
that
yeah,
would
but
be
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
I want to do that. I want to do that. I am a full-fledged, I am not a monolith. I am not a one-trick pony. So yeah, I definitely I
All
want to
right.
do that.
So I'll send you the dates and
Okay.
I'll DM you the dates. Let's lock in something.
Sounds good.
If not before the end of the year, but let's lock something in the new year. Otherwise, now also, uh, I know you're a busy lady. If you've got the 11th of December free, that'll be the last show for the year. And I'll make the last show, I call it the Goodbye 2026 Christmas show. And I invite all the guests who featured through the year
Oh,
to
no.
pop in, spit a piece, to have a bit of laughter, wish you the festive cheer, and just to farewell the year. So this is in August, this will be 3 years with this show. So
Oh, dope.
yeah. So 11th of December, if you're free, I'll send you an
Yep, I
invite
locked it
anyway.
in.
Yeah.
I locked it in, and as long as I don't have anything scheduled, I'll definitely try and make sure I come by. So thank you so much again for coming, Elemento, Mama Betty. I think Erica left out, but everybody that was able, that participated in the chat, I really appreciate y'all. It really means a lot to me. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to have this platform to chat a little bit.
Lady K, it's been a pleasure, and you've honored the platform with your presence. I and me as a person, as an individual, I have absolutely cherished our conversations. It's so nice to meet somebody who I aligns with my own thinking and my
Absolutely.
own. And as I
And
said
I know you
before,
do poetry too, so anytime you want to share some of your poetry with me, don't feel free to slide in them DMs.
I will do, will do. But yeah, I've got a couple of books out, and I'm working on the third at the moment. But this door is always open to you, Lady K. Just hit me up.
Thank you.
Uh, it's you honored this platform. You honored me to connect with you at this personal level online here, and to getting to know so much more about you as well. And I have the deepest respect for your work. I love the
Thank
topics. I love
you.
because they're very real topics that you do touch on, and I think your word needs to be spread, because I think it can help a lot of people who have nothing else to turn to in a dark hour, and I think
I sure hope so.
you can give them that strength just in if they read your work and listened to it and reflected on it. I think it can give them the strength that they need to rise above many hurdles. So yeah,
Thank you.
it's been an
It's been a
absolute
fun
pleasure,
two
Lady K.
hours. I can't believe it's already 2 hours.
2 hours, yes. So no, it's been an absolute pleasure. And as I said, we'll touch base. We'll lock in
Yep.
another date, and we'll and saxophone, anything. If you play any other instruments,
I'll
let's
be
get
ready.
in.
I'll be ready. I'm gonna start practicing. I'm gonna start practicing. You
Stay
have a
safe, Lady
wonderful rest
K.
of your Saturday.
Yes, yeah. No, stay safe and stay blessed, and continue with your amazing work. And I don't know if the results of the recent competition was on out, but I do wish you win one, if
Thank
not
you.
all three
Thank
nominations.
you. It's some stiff competition, but I'm gonna make it do what it do. So yeah.
Stay safe, stay blessed, and thank you, Miss Betty. Thank you to everybody who's come through the room. Lady K, when I post this, I'll add you as a collaborator.
Okay,
And in the next week, when I create the YouTube and the Spotify, I'll send you those links as well. Feel free
perfect.
to use them any which way you want. They're yours. Use them as you wish.
Thank you so much. Enjoy. Bye, Mama Betty. Bye, everybody.
Stay blessed all.
Have a good one.
God bless.